And launching on November 9th, we have The Hand of Destiny, and this plays one player and takes about 10 to 20 minutes to play. And this is actually a game that I covered a few weeks ago because I thought it was launching earlier, but I actually got a ton of new information since then, so I'll go over this one again with the new info because there's actually going to be 3 games in this campaign, and they're all solo games, and they're all going to take place in the same world with the same characters and art style, but they're going to be playing very different from each other. And this is the campaign that I'm most likely to back this week, so for that reason, it's going to be my pick of the week. And I'll just go through each of these games one by one and tell you a little bit about how they play. And the first one is for The Hand of Destiny. And this is the one that I'm most excited about out of the 3, namely because you can play it in the palm of your hand. And that shouldn't be underestimated because it's a really nice feature for a solo game because you can just take this with you and play it almost anywhere at any time. It's really easy to get in a quick game. And in this game, you're going to be going through a deck of cards of waves of enemies. And at the end of that deck, there's going to be a boss, and each card you can actually flip over and rotate. And each boss actually has 4 forms that it's going to go through. So after you defeat the first boss, you're going to be flipping that card and then defeating its second form, and then so on and so forth until you've defeated its 4th form. And at that point, you win the game. You can play as a couple different characters, and each character has 6 different abilities on their character sheet. Each of these also doubles as your health. So if you take damage, you're going to be covering up an ability, and you're not going to be able to use that unless you heal. And there's a few ways that you can damage enemies in this game. You can either use your abilities, but this does come at a cost because these are more limited, and you can only use your abilities about twice per wave. Some of your abilities also limit the amount of rewards that you'll get, opposed to defeating the enemy in the main method, which is by collecting strength cards that you can then spend to deal damage to those enemies. And the way that you get strength cards is by defeating enemies, because each enemy card will also have a strength value, and when you defeat it, you'll be able to take that into your hand and then use it to try and defeat other enemies. Defeating enemies can also get you gold, which you can spend to get new weapons and potions at the shop at certain points in the game. And another reason to be excited about this one is that the designer does have some experience making handheld games, because he is also the one that designed Gloomholden, which made a splash a few weeks back. And then we have The Forgotten Road, and this one's going to be playing quite a bit differently with more of a focus on hand management, and players are going to be playing as a party of characters rather than an individual character, and you're going to be traveling down a deck of road cards. You can see the different road cards here, and they have a few laid out in this picture, but you only really need 2 road cards out at a time because you're always going to be on the leftmost card as you travel from the top portion of it down into the bottom portion and then over to the next card. Each card is going to have a location as well as a monster on it, and you're going to be putting your pawn out on the card to indicate which area you are currently located. And wherever you are, you're going to have to try and meet the requirements there in order to move on to the next section. And the neat thing about this is that the requirements for each card are actually randomly generated, because to see those requirements, you need to put 2 cards together, because the icons and artwork there will combine in order to show you what that full requirement is. To fulfill these different requirements, you're going to be using a combination of action cards as well as dice rolling. And the action cards are actually multi-use. They're going to have an attack value, a movement value, and a number of icons visible. And each one of those you can use to fulfill the different requirements of these different road cards. But keep in mind, whatever side you choose to use, you're going to be discarding the other side. So you're going to want to be efficient with the way that you use these cards. You'll also be able to roll some dice to get you some extra icons so that you don't have to use as many cards, because the cards also double as your health. And if you deplete that deck twice, you lose the game. You're going to be going through these road cards, repeating that process one by one until you reach the final boss. And once you defeat the final boss, you're going to be going through another deck, but this is going to be a dungeon deck. And the game's going to play the same way, and you're going to be moving through the dungeon, and then you're going to be reaching a final boss in the dungeon. And if you are able to defeat that boss, then you win the game. Defeating enemies gains you gold, and when you're on a location portion of a tile, you can spend that gold for different potions to help you along the way, but you can only do this twice per game. Each character also has its own individual special ability that can help you along the way, but the characters also have health, and if all your characters lose their health before you defeat the final boss, then you can also lose the game that way. And the last game in this collection is for the last Stronghold, and this is a tower defense style game. Players are going to be trying to defend the castle against hordes boards of enemies, as they're going to be drawing these enemies from the deck and assigning them to the different locations specified on those cards. There's 5 different locations that monsters can spawn at, but each location can only hold 2 monsters. So if a location is full but more monsters continue to spawn there, instead of spawning that monster, you're going to put a corruption token there. And once there's 5 corruption tokens, that location is destroyed, and any additional monsters that get spawned there are going to instead inflict damage on your stronghold. And once again, you're going to be playing as a party of heroes, each with their own special abilities. And their special abilities do double as their health, so if you use a special ability, you're going to be flipping that hero to their injured side, where they're going to have a different special ability. And if you use that ability, then that hero is going to be defeated and removed from the game. So you're going to want to use these abilities sparingly so that you at least have one hero surviving by the end of the game. And on your turn, you can visit any of the 5 locations, and then you're going to be rolling dice to try and match icons on the dice with the icons on the monsters that have spawned there. If you're able to do that, then those monsters are defeated and discarded from the game. Location cards can also gain treasure tokens, and if you spend a die matching the icon of the treasure token, you can get that treasure, but then you're not going to be using that die towards fighting monsters, so there is a cost to that. And treasure can get you some special abilities and magical artifacts to manipulate the dice and monsters, and if you defeat all the monsters before your hero's health runs out, or before the city is destroyed, then you win the game. So if you're looking to add some solo games to your collection, this is definitely one to check out. And if you're not too familiar with solo games, but you want to give them a try, I definitely recommend grabbing one that plays in the palm of your hand, whether it's this one or Palm Island. They're just super accessible and really easy to just get out and play anytime you have some time to kill, or if you want to take a quick break for yourself. And don't forget, I have links in the description below, and you can click to get notified.